Hey BookTube! Today's video is going to be all about my 2024 stats. I did this last year for 2023 and I've gone back over that video to look at which ones I did, and I'm going to go through them again with you today. So let's have a look at what I achieved last year. I read a total of 117 books last year. 22% of those were physical books, 68% were digital ebooks, and 9% were audio. So that's a total of 26 print books, 81 ebooks, and 10 audiobooks. I read pretty much mainly from two genres, and those were romance and fantasy, but I also read crime, sci-fi and non-fiction. Now I read 80 romance novels, 19 fantasy novels, 9 crime novels, 1 sci-fi and 1 non-fiction. My average rating for the year was 3.56, and the highest average rating for the year was in October, when I gave 4.38. I only had 2 new 5 stars this year, and they were Book Lovers by Emily Henry and Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. Of the 117 books that I read, 103 books were from a series. Now I haven't tracked series starts, series continuations and series finished. That is something that I'm aiming to do in 2025. But yeah. I think that means that I have done quite well. I don't think I started lots, but I don't think I finished lots either. So at least there were lots of continuations there. I read a total of 34,490 pages. And the month that I read the most pages was March, and I read 4,892. So that was an average per book of 322 pages. That's just based on physical and ebooks. 10% of those books had 500 pages or more. 50% had between 300 and 499 pages, and 40% had less than 300 pages. My shortest book was Dragon's First Christmas, coming in at 34 pages. And my longest book was The Memory of Souls by Jen Lyons, which came in at 780 pages. I listened to just over 101 hours of audiobook. 10% of those books had 16 or more hours. 60% were between 8 and 15 hours long, and 30% of them were less than 8 hours. My percentage of fiction to non-fiction, 99% to 1%. The only non-fiction I read was Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. My average length of time reading a book last year was 11 days. Now, Storygraph, which I use for a lot of these stats, has brought in a new feature towards the end of last year, and that is the pause feature. So if you're someone like me who picks up a book, reads it for a couple of days, puts it down, and then doesn't come back to it for a while, you can now pause that book. If you are someone who tracks your pages as you go, the pause feature will pause the book for the date of the last time you made an entry. If not, it will pause it from the day that you started. So I do recommend tracking daily your pages in books. But yes, that will then take out, so whereas if you read a book 2 days on the trot, put it down for 3 days and then read it for another 2 days, it would count the 3 days that you weren't reading it in your average time with it. However, if you now pause the book, it removes those days and it calculates how many actual days you read that book for, which is brilliant. So I'm hoping that the average days with books will actually come down, because I have done some backfilling. I have books that are on the go, that have been on the go for years, and I have gone back in and added in the pauses. between the long sections where I've not been reading them. So I'm hoping that that average time spent with a book will come down for 2025. The shortest time I spent with a book was Dragon's First Christmas. Now, I'm putting this one in because it was my first one of the year. One day. I spent one day reading it because it was 34 pages. It didn't take me days to read that. I would have been kind of worried if it took me longer than a day to read 34 pages. The longest time I spent with a book is, and this is where this pause feature is going to help, is Ruin of Kings, which took 350. It says I took 315 days to read it. I didn't take 315 days to read it. I think maybe there are 10 to 15 pages read entries on Storygraph. It's just that I started it in 2023 and finished it in 2024, and I had a long gap where I didn't read anything from it at all. So that isn't strictly accurate. So this is what I'm hoping the pause feature will now sort out. A new stat that I have gone through meticulously, because I have done very well in my reading journal last year. I made a real effort to write down all the books that I brought into my home, regardless of where they came from. So whether I purchased them, whether they came from Kindle Unlimited, or whether they came from the library. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've noted the value. Now, Kindle Unlimited, I haven't written down how many Kindle Unlimited books I read last year. However, the cost of Kindle Unlimited to me last year for the whole 12 months was £113.88. I've gone back through and all the books that I finished last year that came from Kindle Unlimited cost, if I had purchased them, cost £201.90, which means that I've actually saved myself £88 and 2p. Win! That is the whole point of, for me, Kindle Unlimited, is that I should be reading more value than I'm actually paying out for me, to make it worthwhile. So that does mean that Kindle Unlimited was a worthwhile service. So I am going to keep it. It is something that I keep under review, and I periodically consider cancelling it. But yes, it is something that I'm going to keep paying it, and I'm going to keep tracking it again this year. And I'm just going to keep an eye on that amount just to make sure that it is paying me. I checked out and read 11 books from the library. Now, I checked out a lot more. In fact, just this week, I have returned a book to the library that I took out and I haven't read it. So I read 11 books from the library. Had I purchased those 11 books, it would have cost me £118.89. So again, between Kindle Unlimited and using the library, I've saved myself over £200 last year. I purchased 24 new books. Now, that's only an average of 2 a month. That's pretty good. At the height of my book purchasing, I was buying 30 to 40 books a month. Now, a lot of them were cheapies on ebooks. So I did get a lot of cheap books, and I had a second job at the time as well, which pretty much funded my book buying habit. So 24, I think, is quite a respectable number of books. I spent £171.35 on those 24 books. I read 8 of them, so I have 16 of those which are carrying forward and have been added into my unread books that I own spreadsheet, and the value of the 8 that I read is £96.92. So I read more in value than unread, which for me, I would prefer it to be that way around, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think that's pretty true for all of us. So those are my 2024 stats. Are there any stats missing that you would like to know about? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll have a look and see if I can incorporate them. One of the things I have done with my series this year, and I will just briefly show you in my reading journal for this year. Now, Megan includes this page, which is a book series tracker, and you write down the series that you're reading and you colour in the boxes as you go. Now what I'm doing this year, these are all the series that I've read from so far in this year or have started. So the Broken Empire, at the point that I'm reading this, I am listening to book 1 of Broken Empire, so that square will be coloured in. Any that are yellow are books that have been read in a previous year. So anything that will be purple, pink, orange or blue are read in this current year. So that's how I'm going to track which series I'm going to be reading from. But I have an additional tracker that I have set up for myself. So this is quite a simple tracker, and all it is I've just drawn out a grid in my tracker, and I'm going to track the books, if it's the start of a book, a continuation of a series, or the last book in a series, and then I'm going to colour it in. So it'll be red for a series started, yellow for a continuation, and green for a finish. So as you can see, I'm filming this on the 19th of January. So far I have started 3 series and finished 1. So I'm not evening out, but what I would like to do is to see more yellow and green on this page than there is red. Need to pick that up a bit, I think. I'm only going to colour this in as I finish it, so it is just going to be books that I finished. So there isn't an entry on there for Broken Empire just yet, I don't think. Or I might have done. But yes, so this is how I'm going to track the stats next year to be able to give you a better breakdown of how I've done with series reading. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more of me in your feed. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!